explain yourself to anyone anymore. You ever been in a room where someone said something that hit you wrong? I mean really wrong. Maybe it was a subtle jab disguised as concern. Maybe it was that condescending tone when they explained something you already knew. Or maybe it was just the way they looked at you. Like you were furniture. Like you didn't matter. And what happened inside you in that moment? Your chest tightened. Your face got hot. You felt that surge of energy demanding to be released. That voice in your head screaming, say something, defend yourself, make them see they're wrong about you. So you did. You responded. Maybe your voice cracked a little. Maybe you spoke too fast. Maybe you gave a perfectly logical explanation of why they misunderstood you. And as the words left your mouth, you watched something shift in their eyes. Not respect, not understanding, something else. Satisfaction. Because in that moment, without even realizing it, you handed them exactly what they wanted. You showed them your hand. You revealed that they got to you. You demonstrated that their opinion of you matters so much that you'll interrupt your own composure to correct it. And in the intricate, unspoken hierarchy that governs every human interaction, you just moved down a rung. Not because you were wrong, not because your explanation wasn't valid, but because you showed emotion when you should have shown nothing at all. If you've ever felt that sick feeling in your stomach after defending yourself, if you've ever replayed a conversation 100 times wishing you'd just stayed quiet, if you're exhausted from constantly proving your worth to people who shouldn't even have the privilege of judging you, then everything I'm about to tell you will change how you see yourself and how others see you forever. Let me take you back thousands of years, back before we had cities and jobs and social media, back when humans lived in small tribes where your position in the group meant the difference between eating well or starving, between finding a mate or dying alone. In those environments, the social hierarchy wasn't just some abstract concept, it was survival. And the way that hierarchy was established and maintained wasn't through logical debate or careful explanation of your value. It was through the display or absence of emotional reactivity. The alpha, the leader, the one at the top, they had something the others didn't. Unshakable composure. When someone challenged them, when someone questioned their authority, when someone tried to take their position, they didn't scramble to defend themselves. They didn't explain why they deserved to be leader. They simply held their ground, often, with nothing more than a look, a silence that said, your opinion of me is so irrelevant I won't even acknowledge it. And that silence, that refusal to engage emotionally, communicated more power than any words ever could. Meanwhile, the ones lower in the hierarchy, they were the ones constantly explaining themselves, constantly seeking approval, constantly reacting to every perceived threat with visible emotion. And every time they did, they reinforced exactly where they stood. This isn't ancient history. This is your nervous system right now. You carry the same hardware, the same deep programming that reads emotional reactivity as a status signal. When someone sees you get defensive, when they watch you scramble to justify yourself, when they witness you lose composure because of something they said, their unconscious mind registers one thing. This person is below me in the E hierarchy. Not because you're less intelligent, not because you're less capable, but because you just showed that their judgment has power over your emotional state. And in the brutal calculus of social status that operates beneath every human interaction, that puts you below. Here's what most people don't understand about defending yourself. They think the problem is what they say in their defense. They workshop better responses. They practice comebacks. They try to find the perfect words that will make people understand them. But that's like rearranging furniture on the Titanic. The ship is already sinking, because the moment you feel compelled to defend yourself, you've already lost. Think about it. When someone accuses you of something, when they imply something negative about you, when they challenge your competence or your character, and you immediately jump in to correct, then what are you communicating? You're saying my value is uncertain enough that it requires defense. You're saying your opinion of me is so important that I need to make sure you have the correct information. You're saying, I am not secure enough in who I am to let your misunderstanding exist. Without correction, every word of your defense, no matter how logical, no matter how true, is soaked in that subtext. And people don't hear your words. They hear the desperate energy underneath them. They see the need in your eyes. They feel the anxiety rolling off you. And their unconscious assessment of where you stand in relation to them gets locked in. You're below, not because of what you said, because of the fact that you needed to say anything at all. Before we go further, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be brutally honest with yourself right now. How many times have you laid in bed at night, replaying a conversation in your head, feeling that knot in your stomach because you defended yourself and somehow it made everything worse? How many times have you felt that specific shame of knowing you revealed too much, you cared too much, you tried too hard to make someone see your worth? That feeling of nakedness, of exposure, like you took off your armor in the middle of a battle and everyone saw how scared you really are. If you know exactly what I'm talking about, if this is touching something raw in you right now, I want you to do something. Go down to the comments right now and write just 3 words. I feel exposed. That's it. You don't need to explain the situation. You don't need to tell the whole story. Just those 3 words. Because when you write that, something shifts. You take that private shame you've been carrying alone and you put it out there. And you're going to see something powerful happen. You're going to scroll through these comments and see hundreds, maybe thousands of other people writing the same thing. And you're going to realize that this feeling you thought was your personal weakness, this thing you've been beating yourself up about for years, it's not some unique flaw in you. It's a pattern that was taught to you. It's a trap that almost everyone falls into because nobody ever explained how the game actually works. So go ahead, write it. I feel exposed. Let that be the moment you stop carrying this alone. Because your comment might be exactly what someone else needs to see today, to realize they're not broken, they're just playing by the wrong rules. And after you do that, come back. Because now I'm going to show you the rules that actually work. Let's talk about what actually happens in your nervous system when someone triggers you. You're not just having a thought. You're having a full body response that was designed millions of years ago to keep you alive in a very different world. Someone says something that threatens your social position, and your amygdala, that ancient alarm system, in your brain, registers it as a survival threat. Your sympathetic nervous system kicks in. Cortisol and adrenaline flood your bloodstream. Your heart rate increases. Your thinking narrows. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of you that does complex reasoning, starts going offline. And in that state, you do what every threatened animal does. You fight, you defend, you try to make the threat go away by explaining it away. But here's the cruel irony. The very act of defending yourself, driven by your nervous system's attempt to protect you, is what actually lowers your status because while you're in fight mode, flooded with stress hormones, speaking faster than you should, explaining more than you need to, the other person is watching a display. And if they're in any way socially intelligent, if they have even a basic grasp of human hierarchy, they're reading that display as, I just took status from this person. Your defense is their confirmation that they matter to you, and the person who matters to the other always sits below the person who doesn't need anything from them. Now let me show you what power actually looks like in this situation. Imagine the same scenario. Someone makes that comment, that insinuation, that challenge to your competence or character, and this time, you feel the same internal response. That heat, that surge of adrenaline, that voice screaming, defend yourself. But instead of obeying it, you do something they're not expecting. Nothing. You let a beat of silence sit there. Maybe you look at them with mild curiosity, as if they just said something in a language you don't speak, and you're not particularly interested in learning. Maybe you give the slightest nod, an acknowledgement that sound came out of their mouth but carried no weight. Then, you continue with whatever you were saying before, or you smoothly redirect the conversation elsewhere, or you simply remove your attention from them entirely and give it to someone else. What have you just done? You've communicated something so powerful that most people will never master it in their entire lives. You've said, without saying a single word, "You don't exist as a threat to me. Your opinion is so inconsequential to my reality that I won't even spend the energy to correct it. I'm so secure in who I am that I have no need to make you understand me." And that silence, that refusal to engage, that absolute absence of defensive energy, reorganizes the hierarchy immediately, because in that moment, they realized they couldn't move you. They threw their best shot, and you didn't even flinch. And unconsciously, automatically, their nervous system recalibrates where you stand. Above them. Not because you dominated them, not because you humiliated them, because you were simply immovable. This is what Niccolò Machiavelli understood when he wrote about the appearance of virtue being more important than virtue itself. It's not that truth doesn't matter. It's that in the realm of power, perception is truth. If people perceive you as needing their validation, you need their validation, regardless of what you tell yourself privately. If people perceive you as emotionally reactive to their judgments, you are low status, regardless of your actual competence or value. Machiavelli would tell you that the prince who needs to explain why he should be respected has already lost his throne. The prince who simply acts with the assumption of respect, who moves through the world as if his authority is self-evident, creates that authority through his very demeanor. This isn't about lying or pretending to be something you're not. It's about understanding that your value is not determined by consensus. It's determined by your willingness to act as if it's already established. And every time you defend yourself, you're holding up a sign that says, "My value is still up for debate." Every time you refuse to defend yourself, you're making a statement. My value is not on the table for discussion. Let me give you a concrete example because I know some of you are thinking, okay, but what about when someone spreads lies about me? What about when someone actively damages my reputation? Am I supposed to just let that happen? Here's what you need to understand. There's a massive difference between strategic clarification and defensive reaction. Defensive reaction is when you're emotionally activated, when you're speaking from that place of needing them to see the truth, because their wrong perception of you is intolerable. Strategic clarification is when you're completely calm, when you've decided that correcting the record serves your interests, not your ego, and you do it once, clearly, without any emotional charge, and then you're done. You don't follow up, you don't check if they believed you. You don't need their acknowledgement that you were right. You simply stated the facts and moved on. That's the difference. One comes from power, the other comes from fear. And people can feel that difference even if they can't articulate it. Robert Greene talks about this in the 48 Laws of Power when he discusses Law 4. Always say less than necessary. The more you say, the more common you appear, and the less in control you seem. When you're defending yourself, you're over-explaining. You're providing context and backstory and justifications that nobody asked for your. And every extra word is a little leak of your power. Meanwhile, the person who says less, who lets their actions and their composure speak for them, becomes more mysterious, more impressive, more untouchable. Silence has weight, defense has desperation, and in the hierarchy, weight rises and desperation sinks. So the next time someone comes at you with an accusation or an insinuation, try this. Take a breath. Feel that urge to defend rising in you. And instead of obeying it, ask yourself, what would someone who doesn't need this person's approval do right now? Not what would make me feel better in this moment. Not what would prove I'm right. What would demonstrate absolute indifference to their judgment? Sometimes that's silence. Sometimes it's a simple, I see it differently, and leaving it there. Sometimes it's changing the subject so smoothly they don't even realize you just refuse to engage. But whatever it is, it comes from a place of, I don't need you to understand me. And that place is where power lives. Now we need to go deeper, because there's a part of this you haven't dealt with yet. The reason you defend yourself isn't just because you want to correct misinformation. It's because deep down, maybe in a place you don't like to look, you're not sure. You're not sure you're enough. You're not sure you're as competent, as worthy, as valuable as you want to be. So when someone challenges that, when they poke at the exact insecurity you've been trying to hide from yourself, it's unbearable. You have to defend not because of them, but because you need to convince yourself. This is the work most people never do. They spend their whole lives managing other people's perceptions, exhausting themselves trying to control how they're seen. But they never go inward and deal with the self-doubt that's driving all of it. Carl Jung called this shadow work, the process of bringing into consciousness all the parts of yourself you've rejected or denied. And until you do that work, until you look directly at your insecurities and stop running from them, you'll be a puppet on strings that anyone can pull. They'll say the magic words that activate your shame, and you'll dance. Every single time. But when you've done the work, when you've sat with your shame and your fear and your sense of inadequacy and integrated it, something changes. Those comments that used to send you spiraling don't land anymore. Not because you've become arrogant or delusional about your flaws, because you've accepted them. You know who you are, including the parts that aren't perfect, and you're okay with it. So when someone tries to use those imperfections against you, you can just shrug. Yeah, I'm working on that. Yeah, I don't know everything. Yeah, I made a mistake. And the power in that admission, when it comes from genuine self-acceptance rather than defensive justification, is something they can't touch. Here's your challenge for the next 7 days, and I'm serious about this. I want you to practice the discipline of non-defense. Every time someone says something that would normally trigger you to explain yourself, to justify, to correct their misunderstanding, I want you to pause, count to 3 in your head. Then, instead of defending, I want you to respond with curiosity or indifference. Ask them a question that puts the focus back on them, or simply acknowledge what they said without agreeing or disagreeing, and move on. So if someone says you always do this, instead of launching into all the times you didn't do that thing, you could say interesting that you see it that way, and let the silence hang there. Or you could ask, what makes you bring that up right now? Notice I'm not telling you to be passive-aggressive. I'm not telling you to fight back with sarcasm or veiled insults. I'm telling you to genuinely disengage from the need to control their perception. Let them think what they think, and watch what happens. You're going to feel uncomfortable at first. That silence is going to feel like death. Your whole body is going to scream that you need to fill it with explanations. Don't. Breathe through it, stay present with the discomfort, and watch their reaction. Most of the time, they'll either drop it or they'll escalate because you're not giving them the response they expected. If they escalate, that tells you everything you need to know. They weren't interested in truth or understanding. They were interested in the reaction. They wanted to see you squirm, and by not squirming, you just won. Do this for 7 days. Every single interaction where you feel that pull to defend, practice the pause. Practice the redirect. Practice the indifference. And at the end of the week, notice how differently people are treating you. Notice how much more space you have in your own head. Notice how much energy you've conserved by not engaging in battles that were never about truth in the first place. If you made it this far, I know something in this video grabbed you. Maybe it was uncomfortable, maybe it confirmed something you felt for years but couldn't put into words. Maybe you're sitting there right now feeling that mix of relief and anxiety. Relief because finally someone gets it. Anxiety because you're not sure you can actually do this. Let me tell you something. You already know how to this. You've just been trained out of it. Every time you were told as a kid that you needed to explain yourself. Every time you were punished for not justifying your actions. Every time someone made you feel like your worth was contingent on their approval. You learned to defend. But that's learned behavior. And anything learned can be unlearned. You don't need to become a different person. You need to remember the person you were before the world taught you to shrink, before you learned that other people's opinions were more important than your own sense of self. That person is still in there. And every time you choose not to defend, every time you let someone's judgment slide off you like water off stone, you're bringing that person back. This channel exists for people like you. People who are done performing, done explaining, done begging for scraps of respect from people who never deserved access to them in the first place. Every week I bring you strategies rooted in psychology, power dynamics, and the brutal truths about how humans actually operate beneath the social niceties we pretend matter. If you're ready to stop being a victim of your own reactivity, if you're ready to build the kind of presence that doesn't need to announce itself, because it's felt the moment you enter a room, then subscribe to this channel. Click that button, turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning. And if this video helped you see something you've been blind to, if it gave you even one insight that's going to change how you show up tomorrow, leave a like so more people who need this message can find it. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, you don't owe anyone an explanation for who you are.